If you enjoy our show, if you like our show, if our show is helpful to you, which we hope it is, that's why we're doing them. Then we need volunteer help. You know, we don't have a funding source except for donations. And right now you've been very generous in your donations, but it takes money just to pay the bills to keep the show on the air, between Zoom cost and the website cost of just having the website, and the fee to the state of Florida for having the company. We're looking at $500 a year just for those three costs. So we just need volunteers. We're not asking for more money. We're just asking for a little of your time. So we sure hope that you'll help us if there's any way you see fit to do so.
Jim,
yeah.
I have to interrupt. We're having a problem getting YouTube to start. Somebody or something is blocking me from doing it.
Well, I can't help you, Pat, because I have no idea who or what that would be. So all I can tell you is, it's not recording as far as I can tell on my phone. We're getting nothing from, we're getting nothing at all. We were, when the show first started, it was recording. What happened, I don't know. Do you want to try to restart it somehow, or what do you want to do?
I'm trying to get it started, and it starts Zoom and it stops. Oh, lovely. I don't know what's going on, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, it's no problem. We'll just keep going and do the Zoom show, and I apologize. I'll put out an email later, or a Facebook post later apologizing, but there's nothing we can do. If we can't get on, we can't get on. Okay. Scholarship applications. We thank you for all of your help, but we need more help making sure that the people that can apply are at least knowledgeable about it. Again, we have information on our website. We have a whole separate page on our website. And if you know of someone that might be interested, hope you'll tell them about it. Modeling Lifestyle tomorrow night. Ian Fangus is the guest. It starts at 7 p.m. on YouTube. It's not on Zoom, it's on YouTube. You can deal with questions and comments through the chat function. And we hope you'll join us. Ian is just a terrific gentleman and a fantastic modeler. Pat, we have a short video if we're able to play that.
Mm-hmm.
Join the Modeling Lifestyle at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on April 27th, where we will feature the modeling lifestyle of Ian Fangus. Ian is an amazing figure painter and has been a modeler and professional model and figure painter for many years. Join Jim Kello, Ian and his friends as they discuss how modeling has been a major part of Ian's life.
I love the sound of a whistle.
And it's really going to be a special show with Ian tomorrow night. We did a test of it last night, and everything went well. We didn't have any problems like we did the last time that Ian was on the show because of bandwidth or anything. So I'm really looking forward to it and hope you can join us. Starting May the 10th, Father Ron is going to continue with his Inkscape modeling. And Tom York is going to start building his kit. So that's two new events that we're going to be starting in 2 weeks, on the 10th of May, and hope that you can participate in both of those with us. The MyBuild, we have one tonight, and Chris will be hosting that shortly. The next one is on May the 24th, and as I think Chris has said, what we're doing is we're doing a special kind of my builds or special subjects, I guess, every other month. So the May one will just be anything that you want to show us. We don't have a special kind of thing like we do for one tonight, which was scenery. But the one on the 24th of May is anything that you're working on or anything that you built. We'd love to see it. Well, with that said, let me go to Kevin Hunter for our touch toggle build along. Kevin, welcome.
Got to unmute there. Hi, and I got to support so that people won't be getting quite as much shady video this this time around. Or shaky, sorry. Hi. Well, tonight I'm actually going to walk through building a panel, and anyway, most touch toggle panels are picture frames, and so this is a very small picture frame. And I don't know, are you seeing this backwards the same as me?
It's just fine.
Okay, I didn't know if you could see any of the words because to me they're all backwards. Anyway, that's a small picture frame, very small picture frame from Michael's. Here's a 4x6 from Target, or I'm sorry, this is from Walmart. Probably costs $3. Obviously, you can get, frames of different sorts and colors. So just keep in mind you can detail it a little bit to your own needs. Anyway, I'm going to use a plan that was given to me by a fellow in Australia. He did this, and I thought it was a pretty neat plan. You can see it's all switching, and and so he sent this, and so the first thing I did was to add potentially where toggle placements would be on this. And so literally I just drew circles on it. And so these might be where all switches were used. Here I've got, some of these are single crossovers. And these are actually, they're three-way switches, but they have separate points. So we have a different solution for a three-way switch with clashing points. So these are actually just like stacked switches. But anyway, so they can be operated without concern for that. And I don't know, again, I don't know if this is backwards, but again, he was Australian, so I was wondering how to pronounce this. And after talking with him several times on the telephone, he told me it's, where are we? Anyway, so I, oh dear, sticky paper. So there we go. So the next thing is to make sure that the toggles can fit. And so this was a drawing I did just to show, kind of penciling in where the toggles are. A simple way to do this, if you aren't terribly mechanically minded, is to cut out a 3/4 inch piece of paper and you just use it as a template so that you can just double check to make sure where things are going to be tight. And then this just adding a black square behind some mid-tone graphics allows you to get that nice dark control panel look that that a lot of people really like. Yeah, I get all kinds of things sent to me. This is something that he'd hoped to do, but it's a little small, obviously. So he blew this up. He's a different fellow, but I just printed it out so you could see. There's all kinds of different ways to do this. I've got things kind of spread out, but it's very easy to compact your panel. So I've had as many as 30 controls in basically an 8x10. Now these are full 8.5 by 11 sheets, and I happen to have a frame here from IKEA, which was made 8.5 by 11. So this is whatever, it's a ribba. Anyway, so the first thing you'll do is fold the little tabs out of the way that are here and just pop out all the backing material. And then we'll get rid of the paper and frame that they sent with it. And we just have a piece of glass. And normally it's handy to take the piece of glass and lay it down on your paper, trace it out, and then cut with a pair of scissors so that it matches. In this case, it's an exact fit. So I'll put that glass in there and we'll come back to that in just a minute. Here's our control panel, and I have right here, I have our little power supply that we use for everything. And plug it into a power strip over here. And we have, you can see the light on there. We have, this is a four channel direct base. And this is one of our touch toggles. I'm using single light touch toggles here because they're a little easier to set up quickly. And I'll come back to that. And I'll just plug in a couple of these and you can see they light up and they change color. I'm never quite sure how the colors show on the video because the modern video cameras all try and correct for everything. But Scotch double face tape, I just tear off a little piece and put it right across the face of the toggle. And this one's a little bigger than the toggle needs, but it doesn't matter. And so just as an example, I've just put these over here, and I'll take the control panel and move the dot around that. It's a little easier for me to see when it's red. And just push that on there. And if you don't get it first time, you can just align it. There we go. And that's nicely aligned. And again, I don't know if you can see that clearly, but it's changing color. I've got some very bright lights here. If they're too much, I'll turn them back, or I'll shut them down for a bit so we can see these. But what I'm doing is taking each one, lining it up with a control spot, and it's that simple. And I just, was unsticky tape. Now, this is the moment, whereas if I had put this together as a YouTube video, the audio would get really funny and high, and I would be moving at 90 miles an hour. But anyway, so now to speed this up a little bit, this is one of our 4-channel bases, and I pull this little red tab off. See how easy. And there's 2 pins on here. There's a socket on the other side. So here I have an 8-channel board, which I've already plugged in all the toggles, and I'll just plug those together, and now they're both powered. And all of these toggles have come up. And let me tip this so that you guys can see more clearly what I'm doing. Here we go. All righty. And so anyway, I'll proceed through this and just,
Kevin, we're not, all we're seeing is you,
all you're seeing is what?
is you. Yeah,
Can you
that's, I'm seeing that piece of paper, but whatever you said you were moving so we could see it better, didn't help.
Oh, no, I just tipped it down a little bit.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm seeing that, yes, okay.
And anyway, this is actually pretty quick. So if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to take a minute really quickly and do a few of these. And it's kind of astonishing when you realize how quickly you can set these up. For the sticky ones. Okay. And can you see that dot? It's probably washed out a bit by the bright lights, but I don't know if you can see that. It's
Yeah, I
really
can
easy
see
in a
it.
dark, pardon?
I can see it quite fine.
Okay. It's really easy in a dark basement. These, they probably wouldn't hold up in direct sunlight, but of course, most capacitive discharge, or this was being said the other day, capacitive discharge. That's a type of operator for a snap base, for a twin coil type machine. These are capacitive sensitive, and they sense the water in your finger. Water is is a highly capacitive material, and it's actually what's inside those electrolytic tin cans is mostly water, because it's such a good capacitor. Anyway, so, but this is a capacitive sensing sensor. The discharge is another device. And it can come up because we have all of our twin coil machines are capacitive discharge units, which is probably the best way to operate a twin coil, or the little push-pull machines like Cato and so forth. I'm actually mostly done here. We got 3 more to do real quick. And did I miss one? Oh, there we go. I'm just going to do these. This is much easier to do with your hands in the air. And I think it's because when you rub your fingers together, it pushes the toggle into the paper a little better than trying to do it while the toggle is lying on a table. So that's why you see me doing this manually. Everybody has a different opinion, and somebody will show me up, and that's fine. I have learned far more by listening to what folks that use these things come back with than whatever I could say. Let's see, I'll try one on the table method. We've changed the way that the toggles are packaged. They are now injection molded, and so they're much smoother. And it may be that the roughness of the old 3D printed units was the key problem. But anyway, we now have all of these working, and they're mostly pretty well centered. Okay, as I said, normally we'd have to cut this down, but at the moment, we're just gonna be able to just lay this right in here. And you can disconnect all of these connections. You can see there's 10 of them here, and you can disconnect them and you don't have to number them, because it's very easy just to plug one in at a time. And when you plug it in, it lights up on the panel. So you don't have to go through a lot of exotic documentation before you do this, because it's just too easy to see. Okay. This is pretty typical for the backing of, there it says the IKEA label. And I've made a couple of little cuts in here. And no, just snaps off. It's a tag board. It's not, it's kind of like cardboard. But you can see what I've done is just make a notch to let the wires kind of leak out. And as I said before, I've got some quilt backing, and this material is fluffy and very lightweight. And if it's cut to fit the entire panel, then it pushes all the dark corners into the glass. And so I'll just do that real quick. And I like this stuff enough, I'm going to cut another square. So you really can't overstuff this. So, you know, unless, well, a couple of sheets is good. A single sheet will work fine. And a lot of times with store-bought frames, you're working against a very thin ability to you don't have much room. Yeah, I mean, there's only so much room to put that backing back in. Now, this particular frame I've chosen is a little deeper than some others. And so it's got plenty of room, and you may want to go for a little bit of a deeper frame like that. And here you can see, I hope you can see the backing and that notch, and here's all your wires, they come right out. And I'm going to use one of my favorite devices. These are push pins. And you can use tacks, pins, whatever. In many cases, and this has these little, I don't know if you can see any, little fold over tabs. So it's possible you could fold these tabs back over and make them work. And that would be fine. You can, with the batting in there, you can actually flex the cardboard a bit, and it'll just hold everything snug. So that's the reason I like that so much. And I didn't bring a tool for pulling that over. Anyway, these are clear push pins. Now I use metal push pins when I set track. And I don't use plastic head push pins because I've had some very rude surprises from the amount of force I can put on the plastic. And if you shatter the plastic, the little pin part just goes into your finger just for a little while. I was doing this earlier and it worked fine. So dang nabbit. Anyway. I think I got that. So the idea is just to get this to hold everything snug to the glass. And if I was doing this for real, I put quite a few in, but right now I'm going to settle for just a few. Okay. Now, the lights are working, and most of you will test this along the way, but it's important to know that when you change the environment that a touch toggle is in, such as moving it behind glass, it's important to disconnect the power. And the reason is that every time the toggle starts up, it restabilizes itself to the environment it's in. So it looks for your finger as a change in the environment. So this is on a wood table, so that's not much of a problem. Now I just restarted them, so now they're all green. Now we do have ways to make them remember what color they were, but that's a little beyond the scope right now. But this is working right through the glass. And here we have a fully functional control panel that you just watched me put together in real time. You'll spend obviously more time trying to figure out exactly what you want your design to look like and so forth. But that is the essence of the thing. The base, these are for tortoises, and each pair up here operates a single tortoise. So just 2 wires out to your tortoise, and they hold one position when they're red and the other when they're green. If it's backwards from what you want, you just switch the wires around. We have similar bases for twin coil and push-pull type like Cato machines. And we also have servo operators. And we have a universal translator, which connects to DCC decoders. I know I'm leaving something out. We have a relay base, which is suitable for turning tracks and power, lights, and so forth on and off. They are also well suited to operating high energy machines like actually the little MP1s I know are very popular, and the MP5. And I love those little things. So a relay base is what you'd use for those. There's so many switch machines, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about what they need, but it's a little beyond the scope of what's here. Most of our bases have 4 outputs. This one has 8. Yes? Did I get a question? Anyway. So, well, anyway, there you have it.
I don't know. Hold on, let me see. Okay. 643787.
Okay, as long as I don't have to do this whole show again.
You're muted, Kevin.
Have I been muted forever?
No, just for the last few seconds.
Oh, well, I didn't touch anything, so that's fun. So did anyone have questions? That was what I was just asking. I've been plowing through here, but anybody?
Now, I have one question.
Sure.
The lead from the actual toggle switch to the base,
Yes.
does that wire come in different lengths, or is it just one length?
The lead is always 12 inches, but we have extensions, and we just added another one. We have 6-inch, 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, and 5 foot. The length can be extended on a standard toggle over 60 feet.
Whoa.
So, there's essentially no limit. We found that if we went over 5 feet in a single piece, it was almost impossible to package them in a way that didn't get them tangled up. So that's where the 5 feet came from, was just a practical limit for getting them in a package without spooling them. And we also found if I went to make 10-foot pieces, and they would cost the same as 2 5-foot pieces. So at that point, it was just easier to go with a limited length. But so anyway, it is not uncommon for people with large control panels to add a foot or so to the length of their toggles. The other is some people keep their works in a drawer or something like that, and they need to be able to move the panel. And if you want to move your panel, these these cables that come on the toggles are like number 26, and they're very fine threaded. So they are extraordinarily flexible and they just won't break if they're moved. Usually the wires out to the switch machines may be solid, they may be much heavier, and so they're the ones that'll break. So we recommend strongly that you screw the base down and extend the toggles if you do want something to move. Anyway, I was up in Amherst, and there was a fellow with 36 toggles controlling his Z gauge layout in a coffee table.
I bet that was something to see.
Yeah, it's and he had it in a drawer, so he
Yeah.
had extensions on all of the toggles so that he could pull his drawer out. And of course, he had all the blocks as well as all the switches. So yeah, it was a little like a Christmas tree.
Well, Kevin, I thank you so much for being here tonight. What are you going to tell us next week?
Well, next week I'm going to try and do some work, just showing some basic drawing programs. And it sounds like you've got somebody demonstrating Inkscape.
Yep.
So maybe they should do it, and I'll just sit back and watch. But Inkscape is free, which is, I know for most model railroaders, a big thing. It also works on just about any system. And if you look at this drawing, you need to draw circles and lines. And that's about it. There's a box of black that was put behind this to print black. But, you know, it's boxes and circles and lines. And so.
Well, listen, we'll look forward next week for you to explain it all to us.
I just had someone send me a thing he did in his spreadsheet program. His drawing was done in a spreadsheet program because it was so easy. So
Right.
yeah, I'll be on location. I'm going to be away from all this next week, so I'll mostly be doing a screen presentation.
That's
And
fine.
I hope my Wi-Fi is good enough. So
Oh, yeah. No
All right.
problem. Thanks so much, Kevin. We appreciate it.
sure.
All right. Now I want to turn to Bob Davidson for the workshop tips and tools segment of the show. And Pat, can you hear me? Pat
Yes, I can.
Rivari?
Yes, I can hear you.
I've talked to Phil on the phone, and he should be able to get on shortly to help you figure out how to start recording.
Pat, look at Pat, read the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, well then we'll get going here. Everybody should be seeing that.
Yes, sir.
And again, welcome to Workshop Tips and Tricks. This is week 14 already. Wow. Again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bob Davidson. Work in design for theatrical, exhibit, and museum worlds. And I love working with trains. Tonight's a little different. We're going to look at some joinery options. This really it will relate somewhat to some modeling itself, but it's mostly going to be information I think you'll be able to take away for bench work. If you do modular layouts, it should help for construction and things like that, you know, on modules. So we'll get started. We'll be looking at dowels, biscuits, and pocket screws. A lot of folks think these are really involved, but they're really not. We'll start with dowels. Two basic types of dowels. There's fluted dowels, and this is what you'll buy cut. And if you notice, they're tapered on the ends. That's to help them go into holes. And there's a variety of sizes, anywhere from 1/8 inch. I've seen up to 1/2 inch typically, but usually it's 1/4 inch, sometimes 3/8 inch dowels. These are good for permanent joints. The other type is to just buy straight dowels, a lot cheaper, and you just cut them as you need them. There's a variety of sizes, and these are particularly good if you're just going to be doing alignment. And that, I think, is mostly what you're going to be using these for in terms of our modeling world. We're not really going to be doing a lot of furniture building. But the types of joints you can do with dowels, you can see up top is a miter joint, the cap joints on the right here, what we call a face frame, and then a typical right angle frame where you're going from end grain into face. So all very, very useful for joining stuff together if you just want location, to be able to locate something on the layout, even on the top of the layout. If there's a subsection, dowels can be very, very easy to use rather than having driving a screw every time or a bolt every time. One thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to glue both sides of the dowel. You can just glue one side so that it will be removable. The piece would be removable. So the first method to install dowels is just to mark the dowel locations using a square. And you can see here, we refer to a cross piece as a stile, or vertical piece as a stile, and then a rail. So what you're trying to do is make sure that the location of the dowels is the same in both pieces that you want to join up. If you recall way back when we talked about brad point drill bits, these are going to help you drill accurately where you mark your hole. And you want to use, again, an oldie but goodie. We looked at this back in like week 3 or 4. Use a drill block, because that will help you keep your holes perpendicular to the surface of the wood that you're drilling in. And again, these little notches on the sides of the drill block, if you draw lines to, for alignment, and there's a center one running this way, that'll help you align the drill block to drill your holes for the dowels. Another method is to mark and drill the holes as before, but only drill into the first piece. And then these are called dowel points. So you actually tap these into the holes that you've drilled in one piece, and then hold your pieces together, tap it, and it'll center using these little points that are on it. It'll show you where you need to drill in the other piece of wood. Third method is to make a dowel template. This is easy to do if you have a drill press. The one thing here is you want to make sure that the thickness of your dowel template is the same thickness as the wood that you're using. And then you would just drill your holes in this and then use it to transfer to both pieces. So that's another way to get an accurate alignment of these holes.
Gmail.
And then, as I said, if you just you can just glue one half. So next we'll look at biscuits. I love biscuits with gravy, but these are joinery biscuits. And biscuit joinery is good for edge-to-edge joints, as you see here. We use these a lot if you're trying to splice together a bunch of dimensional lumber, not sheet. We use it on sheet lumber as well, but dimensional lumber, if you want to join them together to make, let's say, a large tabletop or something like that. So biscuits are good for edge-to-edge, but they're also good for edge-to-face. And again, here's wooden biscuits, come in a variety of sizes, 0, 10, 20. And what happens is the biscuits expand when they're exposed to glue, when they're exposed to moisture. Again, you only have to put biscuits in put the glue on one side into one of the slots that you're going to make. We'll talk about that in a second. So, for example, if you had 2 sections of a layout, and you want to make sure that they're kept in alignment in terms of the plane, biscuits are a great way to do that, and they're very inexpensive. In terms of, there's also nylon or plastic biscuits. You'll see these on a lot of high-end decks. They use them if you're, using epay or another hardwood on a deck. They'll use these plastic bits to align boards together to keep them at the same surface level. 2 real ways to install it. One is with a router and a slot cutter. So this is a router bit that you'll use, and you can see that what it'll do is it'll cut in to the edge of the material, and then you'll have a slot to place the biscuit. And here's how that works. And it's as simple as just scribing a line. You can see there are lines scribed here so that you're aligning the slots. You don't have to be totally spot on here, close counts. You'll just put a groove into each edge of each board, and then your biscuits will hold things in alignment. So like I say, it's very good for planer. It'll keep the top surfaces of these boards in perfect alignment. Another tool, if you're doing a lot of it, and I have one, but I don't expect anyone else would, is to use, there's actually a biscuit saw. And basically it's a circular saw on its side. This long slot here, there's a blade in there that's spring loaded, and you push it against the material and it'll cut the groove. So that's the other way to do biscuits. Probably the most useful thing, and I think the thing that you will all get more use out of is using pocket screws. Pocket screws are a blind method of joining wood together, okay? And here's, again, like a face frame example. And what it is typically is you're drilling a hole at a 15-degree angle, and it will come out of the end stock of one piece of, the end face of one piece of wood, and then go into the second piece of wood. You can also use it at right angle, and this is what we use. I did a lot of the interior framing on my layout using pocket screws, because once I set it into the walls of my basement, I couldn't get around to the backside to put screws through. But this also gives me incredible amount of adjustment. I've added some sidings and things like that, and have had to move some framing members around, and pocket screws make that very, very easy. Here are the three components. These are available at Home Depot or Lowe's or online. I use Craig as one of the, KREG is the large supplier of this stuff. There's a stop collar, which you'll use with the drill bit to set the depth that you drill, and then the drill fixture itself. And you can see it has a brass bushing in it that the drill bit will ride in, and that's what sets that 15-degree angle. Here you can see how that works. So when you drill this hole, if I go back and you look, you see the drill bit has a small end on it, and then it has like a built-in countersink. So you'll be penetrating the edge grain, and you see here what you want is to set up the jig, because you can adjust the jig back and forth to determine where you start cutting your slot. You want it so that it comes through the center of the material, right? You can see this screw is kind of penetrating right in the middle. And then it will go deep enough so that it goes almost through the piece that you're joining to. So here it is in practice. You clamp it down. Once you figure, there's a little stop that once you figure out the depth you need, you can set it. This whole setup, by the way, is under $20. There are bigger ones that you can do 2 holes at the same time. For bench work, all that, they go up to 300, whatever. But this is under $20, and it's just a great little tool to have around. And then your joinery is just done. Most of the screws have these round heads on them, because you need a screw with a shoulder, and you'll just drive it in, and it's very, very easy and very, very strong. So pocket screw is a great way to put framing in underneath your layout. Once your layout's all established, you can do this on a miter joint as well. So just real useful and a nice, easy way to do that. Any questions on any of this stuff? Okay. Tool of the week, a helping hand. We're all familiar. I probably have 3 of these laying around, and they're great, but they're really impractical. It's hard to get these alligator clips to come together if you're trying to hold things in one spot. They fall over a lot. Well, there's new ones out there now, specifically made for all the modelers that work with, or hobbyists, I should say, that work with printed circuit boards. So they have much longer flexible arms, and they're really great. There's all different kinds you'll find up online. This one happens to be 17 bucks. It's a large size base. There are other accessories that are available that, other accessories that will, they have little stands if you want to hold things up off the floor, and there's ones that have magnifying glasses, ones that have lights. So I suggest you check it out. This has made a big difference when I'm doing soldering and even just fine detailing. These have this little rubber connection at the end. You can see here, so they won't damage a model. So they're good to hold them. Like I've said many times, I shake a lot. So this is good to hold things steady when I'm working on it. So this week's neat website, Wix Aircraft. I restored a 1961 Harley Davidson scooter a few years ago, and I was looking for Zeus fasteners. I don't know if you're familiar with DZUS, is like a twist. It's an aircraft fastener, and it was used to hold a housing in place. So I found this Wix Aircraft and Motorsports, and they just have some neat stuff that you may not normally see. Airlocks and cam lock fasteners and finishing washers, a lot of different aluminum rivets. Obviously, that's what holds all these airplanes together. Quarter turn fasteners. So just a neat little website. They also have sheet goods, aluminum tubing in a lot of different sizes. There's just some neat stuff you can find there. So I recommend you just have some fun and look around, and maybe you get inspired for something there. So, so that's the neat website. Again, as I mentioned last week, if there's any tools or topics you'd like to learn more about, we've got 2 weeks left in this season, and then we'll be doing another feature over the summer, and then hopefully we'll bring back workshop tips and tricks in the fall. So please email it to me if you have any ideas or anything you'd like to have covered. bob.davidson@newtracksmodeling.com. Next week, episode 15 will be Let's Get Jiggy, tips and tools for jigging. So that is this week's workshop tips and tricks. Back to you, Jim.
Bob, thank you so very much. You know, one thing that I'd like to hear you talk about, I don't know about everybody else, there's all kinds of different soldering equipment out there. And I guess everybody may have their favorites, but I think it would be helpful if we talked about the different kind of soldering irons that people might consider if they do
Sure.
need to solder something.
Okay, we could definitely get into that because I have both standard and resistance. So
Yep.
I will mark that down as one of the episodes for next fall.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
So now let's go to Tom Farrell, who is building a layout. And he's been gracious enough to take the time to do it in segments that are small enough that we can see what he's doing on our show. Tonight, he's going to be building retaining wall, a brick road, and showing you how to integrate one of his dioramas into the total railroad. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you again for having me. My mouse to work here, hold on. It's a built-in urgency detector. The more urgent the need, the less likely anything works. Let's see here. Okay, so tonight I'm going to feature several retaining walls, a brick road, and how I integrate a diorama into the layout. Every week I feature a photograph. This happens to be a model that was a structure that was featured on the last layout, that sitting on a plywood base, and I photographed it on my new layout. So it's a blend of the new and the old. It's Lazaro Ironworks, which is an interesting model, so to speak. Okay, so without further ado, this is the area that I will be working on this evening. I'm naming this Brady's Bend. That's not for Tom Brady, the quarterback. That's for East Brady, Pennsylvania, place where I have out in the boondocks, hard scrabble, where I have had relatives anyway. The first thing I did is I did what I call a mock-up, where I took a couple of my structures that sit on aircraft grade plywood. And to be honest, I probably put a half a dozen on here till I got a couple, 3 of them that I liked. And I liked the way they fit together. And I said, okay, I'll start with Sanford and Son Salvage on the left, the Moonshine Distillery in the center, and the Hotel Riley on the right. This evening, I'll be working on Sanford and Son Salvage and some of the structure around that. This is the first retaining wall that I'm going to show you how I made this one. It's a combination of the railroad ties and a steel reinforced structure holding up the weight of a locomotive or a freight car up above. It's not ballasted yet, but everything you see here is still a work in progress. So the first thing I did is I started with a strip of wood that was 16 inches long, which 1 inch high and about 0.40 thick. This is the backing board for my retainer, railroad tie retainer wall. It's 64 scale feet in length. And I marked it in 1 inch increments. I always like to work in 4 8-foot dimensions. It just, with O scale, it just happens to work out well. And an 8-foot piece of wood isn't uncommon. So I normally work with scale wood, but I see so many people working with these craft sticks. I went to either Hobby Lobby or Michael's, I don't recall which, and I bought a couple bags of these craft sticks. And they're somewhat harder than basswood and certainly harder than balsa wood. But first thing I did is I scored them with this X-Acto scribing blade that I have. You can also use a razor saw, but this is just easier. The weathering mix for the project are these Hunter Line 3 different colors: blue, gray, tie brown, and grayish, whatever the hell that is. And I got these at the last show that I was at in April, Al Judy's show. I've been looking for a project to try them out on. So the first thing I did is I scribed the material. There's a blow up on the right of the effect that you get. And then I used the 3 colors, the grayish, the railroad tie, and the brown. I want variety in that wall. I don't want it all one single color. So there's the base materials. There's 15 sticks there. First thing I did is then set my chopper to 2 inches, which is a scale 8 feet, and I chopped them up into pieces, randomly put them in a pile. Then with yellow wood glue and a paintbrush, I applied my wood glue to my strip that I showed you earlier, the backing board we'll call it, and I randomly, color-wise, glued these 8-foot simulated railroad ties onto that strip. If you look at the top, you see the finished piece that has all the 8-foot sections randomly put on there, all different colors. And then I took some basswood and I made the vertical components there. I stained that just a gray. And then in the bottom picture, I added these simulated steel plates. I just took a little thin piece of 010 styrene. I painted it a rust color and super glued them onto the vertical wood pieces there. And then I wanted to get a little, I thought that wall was too light, so I began adding additional color to that, sort of color balancing it out. And here I started adding the steel bracing, which is just plastistruct material. I used an enamel over that plastic as a base coat. That's the base color you're seeing there. You'll see later on, I add craft paints and chalk, and it comes off as a fully rusted structure. The other thing I did for variation is I didn't carry those steel bracing all the way across the wall. I did it about 3/4 of the way over. I just like to have variety. I wanted variety in color and the variety in the look. So I just didn't want it to look like it was a kit that came out of the box, and I didn't want it to look consistent, if you want. I wanted it to look inconsistent. There's an up close picture of the mix of rust paint. These are the acrylics from Vallejo that I use, and chalk to give you a rusted look. And if you see how rust running down the wood member, you can also see the detail there of the scribing of the wood. You have to keep in mind this is like blown up to 3 or 4 times its actual size. So you see a little fuzz on there. And then I installed it, and I liberally applied Elmer's glue because I'm going to ballast that. And I super glued it to the ramp, if you will. And there we're back to the finished photograph of the wall. I think it came off pretty effective. You see those steel structures are flat. They're not glossy anymore because they have chalk on them. There's a uniform gray across the wall, but there's color variation. I've constantly preaching you want variation in the colors you choose in your modeling, because rarely in man-made structures or in nature is everything so consistent, and it simply comes off more realistic. So that's one of many walls that are required on this Brady's Bend. Next is putting in this brick road. You can see there's granite curbs. There are drains in the street. I'll show you how I did all this. Particularly the granite curbs are an interesting technique that I pioneered. First thing I did is I took a piece of pink foam, and I wanted my structures to be at different elevations. Again, I wanted variation in their height. It adds more realism rather than having everything on a flat plane, the 4x8 syndrome. So I carved and cut this pink foam, made a mess of dust all over my clothes. I started with Monster Works. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're laser cut. They make a lot of products. Laser cut wood, use brick. They have sidings and things. You can use this material for buildings, or you can use it for a road. Up top is how it comes basically delivered in color. And I used a Vallejo dark rust wash to stain the laser cut wood. And then after it dried, I went back and put some black alcohol washes on that, on the quote brick, and not on there as I went back with a white dry brush, and I added some, if you can see right here, some throughout the brickwork. I added a little effervescence. These bricks leach salt, and that's what you get. So it looks pretty realistic up close, and particularly you know, at a distance, but even up close, it stands up. It's an excellent product. This is how I made my granite curbs. I took a 1/4-inch piece of basswood and I took a razor saw and I cut basically lines in it to represent 8-foot sections. And then I painted it I actually got out the old Floquil and I think I pulled a concrete color and painted it, and it looked obviously too perfect. So I wanted to rough it up. So I took a pair of channel locks and I just started crunching it. And then I went back and painted it with different highlights of grays and things and some alcohol washes. And I think it really, you'll see later, I think I really pulled off granite curbs from strip wood. Cost virtually nothing. These are the details, slightly out of focus, the street details from Chooch Enterprises. These are like a vinyl sheet that comes with these molded into them. You have to cut them out. It's on a piece of blue painter's tape there. I painted them black as a base color, and then I'll show you how I mounted them. If you see right here, I cut some of the bricks out, pried out the bricks, and then there's the granite. And I think that comes off pretty good for as far as a granite curb is concerned.
Mhm.
There are the drainage openings of their grates. That's the base color. I'll go back. You'll see I'll go back and rust them with that Vallejo rust. The same color I used for this, I painted these with that Vallejo rust wash. So next project is a stone retaining wall. These pieces, there were 3 pieces that were basically little rectangles. I had to hand cut, these are resin material from my scrap bin. I had to cut these with a razor saw and file. This took me like a long time. I wanted them to go together like a puzzle. And this was quite a lot more work than I expected, but I knew if you make it like a puzzle, you won't see the joints. So, I mean, I can go back and fill it a little bit, but this there's the one joint, there's the other joint, but when I'm all finished, you can't see the joints. And if I would have just used vertical saw cut pieces, it would have been obvious that I used 3 pieces. So the idea was I didn't want to use 3 pieces. Or I didn't want it to appear that I used 3 pieces. I wanted it to look integrated. So there it is in the layout installed. And you can see my brick road here, the granite curbs, the sewer grates, this wall. This is just a resin casting here, just cut across the bottom and painted. And here's the final picture. I took some green chalk. I wanted to have the appearance that there was moss and, you know, a little bit of weathering going on here. I put a black alcohol wash on here. I'm gonna, when I backfill behind this with material, that hole will go away. But with the exception of that, it looks like one piece. It looks like it looks like multiple pieces. It doesn't look like 3 pieces were glued in place there, which was the goal.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. This will be the next, I ran out of, I was up to like 30 slides here, and I didn't think, there's a couple more things that I want to show on this little section here. Next time, I'll show you how I made this wooden fence, this concrete block wall, the signage here, these billboards, and these drainage pipes. That'll be just part of what I'm showing, but I'm really pleased with how this thing's coming together. It's my promise to myself was to make it even better than the last rustic buff and old Gothic, and think I'm getting away with it. It's looking pretty good for me.
Looking fantastic.
Thank you. And there's another shot.
Anybody have any questions for Tom? Tom, thanks so very much. I mean, your work is just gorgeous. I just know nothing else you can say about it. It's just beautiful modeling, and look forward to hearing from you next week.
Thank you for having me again. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
sir. Anytime.
Bye.
Well, now I want to turn, before we get to the MyBuild, and I apologize, the show's running long. It's just, it's happening. Eric Haselhorst of Rockin' Farm Toys is building his truck. And Eric, I can't thank you enough for doing this for us. I'm fascinated with what you're doing. Is Eric not with us?
I don't see him.
He's here. He's having trouble unmuting.
Oh, okay.
I am not unused to technology, is not foreign to me, but that was elusive tonight. Thanks, everyone.
Join the crowd.
Golly, just baffled. Totally screw that up sometimes, but here we are. Okay, I'll finish up tonight with our build. This will be really quick because there's really not much left to do.
Well, but can you share your screen? Because all I'm seeing is me.
Okay, yeah.
There you are.
Are we all good here or no?
Yep, you're on.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Can you make him bigger, Pat?
No, on spotlight you.
Well, take me off.
I will. There you
There
are.
you Thank you.
So like I was saying, this will be a short video tonight, or my segment will be short anyway. We did the lion's share of the work over the course of these last few weeks. And then while we were gone, I did a few things here. I'm going to grab the model that I've been working on. Here we have the truck in its current state. I went ahead and added tanks and steps and some other parts that are all 3D printed out of my store. I explained how I get the chrome last time, so I won't go back into that. I did add a handmade light bar out of styrene right here. Well, the framing that goes right here behind the cab, that's handmade out of styrene. And then this is actually a 3D printed light that is a bit of a transparent resin, which actually it looks pretty darn, it's not clear, it's not crystal clear, but it's really pretty good for what it is. I mean, for where we are at in the scheme of things, I think it's pretty darn good. So this matches what the real truck is. And then tonight we're just going to add some details. So if you're not familiar with, and I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with these two products, Molotow Chrome and Molotow, other colors of Molotow. And then I've got another black paint pen. We're just going to add some fine detail with these paint pens. And if you have never worked with Molotow or the other brands of their colors, it's really cool today. Well, cool for this time of year in Kansas anyways. And if you don't warm this up, it just won't flow very well. And then you'll have a hard time using it. So what I like to do is put it in my pants pocket, or if I got a space heater going in the shop, I'll put it in front of a space heater, just warm it up before I shake it and use it. So just something, if you're not aware, you need to be aware of that. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and change my camera quick, and then we will get started. And flip around. There we go. There we go. Now we get you where we want you. So here, both of them, we're at the finish line. one thing about 3D printed stuff, and I'm sure you guys are well aware of this, but these are just really light. It's not like having a die cast piece. If you're familiar with the die cast, or if you guys use any die cast, die cast just has a nice feel to it. It's just, it's just really light. So what more can I say about that? And one other detail I added was an exhaust pipe, which is made out of narrow aluminum. I don't recall if that's 332 size or what exact size of aluminum pipe that is. Just aluminum pipe here, and then I made an elbow out of solder. And and I keep this size solder in the shop just for this purpose, just for making elbows. Occasionally I might need to pipe something around an engine just to give it some detail. And what's nice about this is it's just stupid simple to work with, and it's cheap. You can buy a lot and cost you basically, less than $10. So it's really cool to have that around. Okay, so I've got my 3 paint pens here. These are the 3 colors I'm going to use this evening. I'm going to go ahead and pocket the chrome and see if we can make the black work. I like to keep lids off of food containers. I think this came off of a can of Pringles. Once my family devoured the contents, I keep the lids just so I can do something like this. So I can put a little dab of the paint out here on this, and then I don't have to worry about it running all over my model, So sometimes when you get into a space like this, for me anyway, I can be steady, but sometimes I'm just kind of shaky. And then I can just dip out of that and onto these little tiny spots where I want paint to be. Then I can come over here. And we can do these fuel cap and air vents on top of the tank. And this is an actual replica of this tank is exactly what you'd see on the real model, because when I was at their shop delivering models the last time I was there, the guy says, "Hey, can you make me a couple of these service trucks to finish off our collection?" I said, "Of course." And just measured the real truck. That was pretty sweet. This is actually a window in real life. A lot of different trucks have these kind of windows on the passenger side. Down there, the driver's side normally doesn't have it, but the passenger side does. And what's nice is if you use this stuff, it doesn't seem to run. So you notice I filled in that window and then I just set it down because I know it's not going to ooze down the side of the truck. So that's pretty cool. And again, with Molotov, depending on how warm the fluid is in the container, you push this and you can see that once it gets warm, it flows right out of the pen. So in the past, when I wasn't paying attention, I actually, I started out, getting the chrome to flow, but then there was a bunch of it kind of came out that tip. You can kind of see it's pooled up right there at where it comes out of the pen. It's pooled up there at the bottom, and then it ran down that pen and then onto my model and had to start over. That was a nightmare. I would tell you that this stuff, if you don't know, it's alcohol based. So if you do happen to get it where you don't want it, you can take isopropyl alcohol on a rag and wipe it off the surface of whatever you got it on. Maybe you dribbled it somewhere you didn't want it, and it'll come right up. So just something for you to keep in mind. On detail work, sometimes I'll even use a toothpick or something, like on these tiny latches here. I'll just use a toothpick and just kind of give them just a shade of color, because sometimes I get shaky and just make a mess. But tonight I'm having a good night. And you don't need a lot of color on these cabinet doors. And it's really up to you if you want to add it. that's not something you have to add. Of course, with you guys detailing trains and stuff, I'm sure you're well aware of adding detail. And I do like this Molotow because it does give you a nice chrome look. And it goes on so easy. And then for large surfaces, like, for example, sometimes I'll have cabinets that I want that are a raw color or something, a paintable item. I can run that Molotow through my airbrush, and man, it just goes on so beautifully.
I'll tell you one thing, Eric, I think all of us would love to have the kind of detailed model vehicles that you make on our layouts.
Well, I would love to have the time to make the detailed layouts that you guys make for your trains, because the one behind me, if you haven't seen it in the background, I've got two layouts behind me, and they're basically, what I've got them for is just to show off different things that I'm doing. And it makes for great photos for when I post them online and send them to clients and things like that. This particular model, I actually had different grill inserts for these two spaces I'm shading in made. They're kind of clunky and don't look real great, so I usually just skip them and shade the whole area in just like I did. And then it gives you the look I'm going for, even though it's not 100% accurate to what you'd see in real life. I mean, they were a good idea, but the results just weren't that great.
Eric, how many hours do you figure you've got in a model like this?
A typical replica takes me about 4 to 5 hours if I've got everything together. That's stripping it down. And sometimes, and I've gotten smarter over the years, I do enough of these now that I keep more stuff on hand. Whereas when I kind of got going, I didn't. So I'd spend a lot of time shopping. And now I've got, just stock models just for this purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that includes corresponding with clients and decal makers and things like that. And the red doesn't want to flow very well. Try again. Might need to warm that one up a little bit more, but you get the idea. You could even use paint. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this kind of stuff, testers you could use, if you didn't want to use red for the lights and things, you could use a small brush and a fine paint like that. I just happen to like these paint pens when they work. Well, so what I would do then, this is actually a Kenworth logo right here in real life. And when this is flowing, I go ahead and shade that in. And then right here at the front of the hood, there's another logo. And then flip it around. And then on this particular model, there's 5 lights. There's 3 on one side, 2 on the other, and then you have 2 tail lights down here. And you can shade those in as well. You could use a toothpick, and there's 3 right down here underneath this little gate. You can kind of see those, but there's 3 tiny tail lights there. I would go ahead and shade those in with a toothpick rather than this blunt tip on the end of that paint pen. And that's kind of what you would have there. Another, a typical die-cast model that I would do, and I think I showed some examples when we got started, but this is another example of one that I would do. This one is waiting on decals that are still not here, which is unfortunate. But this one is basically done, less a few little light details I need to put in. But this is a pretty good example of what I would do. And this truck is actually, where's this one at? I think this one's running around in South Dakota. And then this is a lady's father's truck, and then I'm doing one that looks much like this for her husband as well. So all the work I do has a story, which I really like. Rather than wait on that paint pen to warm up, we'll just, you know, we'll just kind of get going, I guess. Call it a good day. Grab a chair. So like I said, everything I do has a story. A lot of guys like to make customs, and they'll just make 4 or 5 of them and sell them at a toy show or a train show. Like there's a big train show in Denver, Timber Dan. A friend of mine goes to that and he sells customs there. One, I don't like to do that just because I don't like to make stuff and hope they'll buy it. Everything I make is sold before I start, which I really like, because then I don't have to guess. And then what's kind of cool is, you know, I can always, everything that I've ever done, I get to retell the story of how that came to be, which is kind of fun for me. So if you say, hey, Eric, that, you know, this thing here is owned by Lance and, Lance Frederick and his brother, and that thing will go from Texas to North Dakota and then back to Kansas. And that's what I like to tell those stories I like to retell that story. Or there's one back here, you know, that was for a guy who's, I've done one. Guy was dying of cancer and he drove a semi, and his wife says, I want a memorial gift before he passes. Can you make him a replica? Yeah, of course. I'd love to do that. So I've done, everything I do has a story, and that's what I want to tell. I want the model to tell the story. So when they see it, they remember someone, they remember a point in time, they remember a favorite memory. That's what I really like doing. So that's kind of that's how this is all evolved. So my layout back here is nothing detailed like what you guys are putting together, which is, and I admire all your work. You guys, the detail you guys put in, it's just amazing. I do static grass and soil, and then I get rock and use paint and have everything. So I'm using actual soil and fine rock that I get from underneath my building, actually. It's just crushed concrete fines, and then static grass, and then some of the other common things you guys do. So it's just all with die-cast models versus trains. So you have any questions for me left over? This was quick and dirty, I know. So, but you get the idea that these 2 products here, I live by these paint pens, Molotow Chrome. This one came from Hobby Lobby, I think. It's just a generic black paint marker. And then this other Molotow Chrome, or red right here, I bought that off Amazon, I think, $4 or $5. And then I have some other paint pens too, like this one came from Napa Auto Parts. I was in there buying paint for a replica and impulse bought that to see how it works, and it's great. So I guess that's what I got for you. Like I said, if you got any questions, man, I'm an open book. I'm here to help or share anything I know.
Anyone have any questions for Eric?
Eric, how fast does that chrome pen dry?
Okay, like how? Okay, I'm going to answer it 2 ways. One, I've never had one of these go dry, but I use it fairly quickly. So I will use a pen like this within about a year, and then I'll refill it. Actually, you can buy one of these for like $30, and I'll either run this through my airbrush or I'll fill this one back up. Okay, once I put it on, I don't handle it for a couple of days, because if you handle it within 24 hours, you can leave. It just seems like it takes a long time to cure, and you'll leave your fingerprints in it, or it will dull. Another thing I found, so I will clear coat a model. So I'll put the decals, I'll assemble it, I'll clear coat it, and then I add the Molotow Chrome, because if you clear coat over this Molotow, it will dull. It won't be this bright, shiny chrome color. It will actually lose its luster with clear coat on top of it. Don't know why. And then another thing I found recently using that, again, I assemble the model, put it all together, and then I use the Molotow. And I'm using a clear coat. And lately, once I put the Molotow on, it wants to wrinkle like there's a chemical reaction where it just kind of like, instead of being nice and glossy smooth, it just goes like this. And you'll see these little crinkles all through the Molotow. And what I've done to remedy that, if I see that happening or it's happened, I'll take a Q-tip with isopropyl alcohol and I'll wipe that off. And I'll just take it down as far as I can take it till all of that wrinkling or that chemical or whatever's going on, till I'm satisfied it's smooth, then I'll reapply it and then it's fine. I don't know why that's been happening lately, but it's been happening. And I've been using Duplicolor Clear, Crystal Clear. And yeah, Duplicolor Crystal Clear. And I don't know why it's wrinkling, but it is. But I let it cure for a couple of days before I touch it.
Thank you.
Anytime. Glad to help.
Any other questions? Eric, I can't thank you enough. I hear people talk about your modeling all the time, and it's no surprise to me. You do some beautiful stuff, and like I say, every one of us would be proud to have your trucks on our layouts.
Well, thanks. If I can help you guys at any time, just reach out to me. I'm, like I said, I don't have any secrets. I made that promise long ago, no secrets. I used to have a Facebook group I called the No Secrets Lab, and I need to change it back to that just because I like the idea. But I gain nothing by keeping all those secrets. So I'm here to help.
Well, we certainly do appreciate it. It's been a real honor to have you here. Thank you so much.
Appreciate the invitation.
Yes, sir. Well, now let's turn to the MyBuild section of this show. Normally, we run the video for Dan Doherty's company, but I don't want to do that tonight because we're running so late. So let me just go to our host for the MyBuild, which is Chris Corse, and let him start introducing the people who are going to share their modeling with us this evening. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
All right, thanks, Jim. Get the slideshow up here. All right. Tonight's MyBuild is, of course, featuring you. And this is our first theme show. We are going to go with the spring theme this evening. And we do have several entries in that category. So without further ado, let's see. I'm your host, Chris Corse, and we will start out with Martin. You up, Martin?
I'm upright.
Okay. All right. Looks like you've got eight slides on here.
That many? My goodness.
Yep.
Sure you don't want to recondense those down? No. Yeah, so this was just a kit that I picked up. KJ Model Works, I think is what it was from. Pretty straightforward and not particularly embellished with anything. Most of the details I added. I think it came with the lights over the doors, but that's about it. It came with a different sign, which I hated. And so I made a new sign. There's a PowerPoint sign for you, for all those who sat through how to make signs out of PowerPoint, which I messed around with and just distressed a little bit. There's actually a dog in there in between there, that section and where the little gate is. You can almost see it.
Oh yeah, I see his tail, tip of his tail.
Yeah, so there's actually a dog in there. You know, it's not quite the junkyard dog, but it's the tire changing dog. You know, close enough. Not so sure the aroma in that space would be particularly lovely though. Go ahead, run the next slide. Okay, the back is, you know, I did a little bit of scenery work. This is sort of what I do with kits now and then is, or structures that used to go on my layout even. They are all get mounted, and then the mounted unit, they get mounted to like a 16th or thereabouts thick piece of masonite or plywood or what have you, whatever I've got laying about, and on my layout. That stays that way. It just gets shoehorned together. So actually the structures on my layout are removable. You just overlay the joints with more scenery material. So, you know, there's tires, there's stuff, all kinds of stuff laying around the back, but it's just basic scenery stuff. It's Scenic Express and Woodland Scenics and JT models, and nothing fancy, nothing spectacular. Just takes a little bit of time gluing down. That door on the end, though, is a complete replacement, because the door the kit came with was peel and stick right on top of the clapboard, and that just doesn't work. I'm not quite sure I understand what they were thinking behind that. So I just made a bigger door out of some Grant Line parts and some hinges and odds and ends around the shop. That is actually framed in styrene and then set into the wood as opposed to laying on top of it. Yeah. Okay, what else we got? Oh yeah, the other side. Well, it's not particularly interesting, but it's as close as I could get to spring. We got flowers blooming. There you go. Or weeds blooming, or goldenrod. I mean, if it's summer, it's goldenrod. If it's spring, it's some yellow thing. That's just, I don't have a lot of spring flowers laying around. Oh yeah, those stutters. Not a lot of spring here either, but it's got some scenery. Again, it's what I do when something's done in the shop. It gets mounted on something thin and gets surrounded with some scenery materials, and go around the side. Hit next slide then, would you please?
Sure.
Yeah, so you can see there's a path on the side, a lot of greenery around the back, and all around. Nothing particularly spectacular, but it finishes the model. That one's all scratch built though. So yeah, more signs. So these are signs that just came off the internet. Actually, one of the places I get signs is from eBay. Just vintage people selling vintage signs. Well, there's a lot of vintage signs out there being sold for ridiculous, stupid money. But once they're into Photoshop, I can straighten them out, unbend them, uncurl them, flatten them out, whatever it is I want to do, and put them into PowerPoint, and then rescale them into 5 different sizes, print them out on a color printer, and then I have them in a folder for future use. So anytime I see a decent looking, every time I feel like using a decent sign, it's sign hunting hour. Let's go on the internet and find signs. Okay.
Yeah, I like that Superior Feeds sign or ad. That looks
That's a
really
nice one. That's a nice one. I really like using that one. The nice thing about that is it covers up a lot of the wall, so I don't have to do anything with that wall. You just go to the next slide if there is one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, this is the last slide.
Okay, hooray. And yeah, so nothing particularly spectacular. Again, it's just some foliage clumps and some prairie tufts. That's what these things are called. I think they're like 6 or 8 millimeter prairie tufts. And they come in all different colors. I forgot who makes them, but I got mine from, oh gosh, I guess it was Scenic Express when they used to hit Timonium. And that stack on the side there, that's all brass soldered together, tubing and stuff that
Yeah, those tufts are actually pretty easy to make.
What are?
The tufts.
Oh yeah, well, they come all stuck to it. They come with peel and stick off of something, but I don't trust the peel and stick, because everything I've ever built that's peel and stick, it peeled and it's stuck, and then a year or 5 later, it's not. It comes unstuck. So I usually add a little bit of glue, and that's my little tiny hot glue gun gets a lot of work. Gets some serious work out on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, the stack is all soldered together, and so I'm looking forward to the soldering section that Jim asked for, because I'm using a little tiny pencil torch, and I don't use a soldering iron anymore except for electrical work. So there you go.
All righty. Well, thanks, Martin. Does anybody have any questions for Martin before we move on? All right. Sounds like we're all
Keep
clear.
moving.
Thanks, Martin. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, one more. Forgot about that.
Oh yeah, look at that. I was wondering if I sent you that.
Yeah.
I actually installed lighting in this. This is oh gosh, I've now forgotten whose lighting stuff it is. Evans, the Evans design stuff. So there's a battery. It's all on top on the top of the inside of the roof, all glued to that. And there's 3 lights, and a switch and everything is up in the roof. So that roof is removable to turn it on and off. So You can see the store's got a few things in it.
Yeah. Well, it's well stocked. Like the moose heads in there. That's
There are moose heads, there are deer heads, there are all kinds of things in there.
Yep. All righty. Any questions before we move on?
Nope.
All right. Thanks again, Martin.
Yep.
Now I'll move on to Greg. You up, Greg?
Yes, I am.
There we go. All right. Looks like you've got 9 slides on this one.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, these I couldn't shrink them down. There's just so much detail in these photos. It was like I gotta share them the way they are. They're
Okay,
huge.
well, I'll get through them quick.
Yeah.
This is a diorama I built. Both of these kits coincidentally are Conowingo kits. One is the Crunge Bridge, which is a swayback bridge, and the other one is called Whispering Chapel, which is based on an Eastern European chapel. And after I built the two of them, I wanted to put them together on a diorama. So we can go through the pictures. Go ahead and next one. Like everyone's found out, taking pictures in sunlight can really help. I managed to get a nice finish on the wood on this one. And when I was taking pictures out in the park, the sun really highlighted it. Next.
Yeah, the Martin Welberg scenery difference is visible in these shots.
Oh, yeah.
Really shows up very nicely.
And I put a creek under it, and that was filled with Envirotex, and then I put the ripples on top with some Mod Podge. And the water's a little high right here, but it's running. I think this is the spring after the winter snow is melting. But I like the way the sun was playing on all of the materials here. And as Chris says, there's a lot of Martin Welberg products on this one. I love his stuff. Next.
Yeah.
And then this is looking from the backside of it, as if you were going through the bridge on your way to the chapel. And a variety of trees, just like you'd find in the Eastern European woods. Next. And this shows kind of what the diorama looks like. It's really only about a foot by almost 2 feet. And it's a piece of pink styrofoam that I put wood on all 4 sides. And, it's just a small little scene, but when you get it outside and you get the camera real close, it can make for some interesting pictures. Next. And this looking through the bridge. I had a couple of European characters that I put in it as well.
Kind of thinking more of a Robert Johnson there. But...
Yeah, and it was fun playing with the little details, like the leaves that have blown inside the bridge.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Because leaves always get where you don't want them to go.
Yeah.
Next. Now this was a barn I built a few years ago, but it also had a spring theme when I was doing it. Unfortunately, this was before I knew about Martin Welberg. It has a lot of Scenic Express stuff, but it's not quite the Martin Welberg level of scenery that I got on this one. But it's just your standard mail pouch barn. Next.
Yeah, whose barn is this?
This kit was put out by Jim Koshin, who was running Medford trains at the time before he passed on.
Okay.
And he based it on a mail pouch barn that was along the Western Maryland line up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if Carolina Craftsman had done one of these. I couldn't remember, but
and this is looking at the other end. This was just some detail I added, because barns are going to have stuff laying around them.
Yeah.
And is there any more?
Yeah, there's at least one more. Yep, this is the last one.
Okay. Yeah, and this is the backside of the barn. And as you can tell, the barn's falling apart. This is where I had the most fun building this one. The trees falling on the shed and the roof is rusting away. And I think it's really only the grass I'm not happy with on this one. And if I had Martin Wahlberg products when I was doing it, I think it would have come out a lot better, but I was still happy and a lot of fun just trying a lot of techniques on this barn. But those are my 2 spring contributions. Thank you, Chris.
All right. Well, thanks, Greg. Fantastic contributions they are. Are there any questions for Greg? All right, I guess not. So we'll go ahead and move on. Tony Dixon, he was having some issues. I do have some notes from him. So he says that first of all, his stuff is O scale, and the Plymouth locomotive started life as HO scale, and he had to regauge the wheel sets, and as a result, both of them, there's one more to follow. They're dummies, so they don't actually have any power to them. And the hopper car, we'll get to here in a second. He actually did some modifications. See, there's the second Plymouth locomotive. Oh, yeah, he did some modifications to the hopper car, and here's a photo of the 3D print that he was working with. And this is what he ended up doing with the ends on the hopper car. And he's oh yeah, okay, it's post 78. So I take it it's post 1978 end pieces. And it's Pacific Rail Shop's ACF hopper. So there's his car on that. And he didn't go over this, or he didn't send me notes on this, but I think if I remember right, these are called Nissan huts, and it's just a real quick a couple Nissan huts that he did. Those came out nice. All right, and actually that was the last slide on that one. So unfortunately, Tony's not up with us because he had computer problems. But thanks for if you're with us, Tony, thanks for sharing. And we'll go ahead and move on. Phil, were you able to join us?
No.
Okay. Huh? No. Okay. All right. So looks like we've got 4 slides from Phil tonight. There's the wharf that he's been working on. And of course, you can see the trees and the scenery in the background there. And I think we're going to get a little bit more. There's some grass and all that he's been working with. And a little bit more of the grass and scenery that he's got going on. I believe this is his layout. And then this is the last one. It's another shot of the wharf. And I believe these are all O scale. So anyway, if you're with us there, Phil, thanks for sharing. And I guess we'll go ahead and move on. Bob Farquhar, are you up with us?
I am.
All right. Looks like you've got 4 slides tonight.
Yeah, I'll make these quick. This is a HO scale kit from Interaction, based in British Columbia. This originally called W.S. Kelly Gas Station, whatever. It turned into a bar dance club in here. So the signs has this sign's lit up, and the telephone booth lights up, and also the Coke machine, and also there's a bar taps, beer taps, and the whiskey bottles and that they're lit up as well, and the interior is all lit up. There's a band back in the stage in the back, and people are dancing and stuff like that. People outside in the patio are drinking. Okay, next one. There's the lights on there. Now, oh yeah, what I did, hit all the wiring, carved little grooves inside the styrofoam base, and all over to the left hand side, and then I put in a reed switch in the ground, covered all out, put a layer of drywall plaster on there. I didn't realize the stuff I had got was caustic, and actually all the wiring is soldered to copper tape, and it dissolved the copper overnight, and I had to dig them all out again, and then do the all wiring all over again. And so on the reed switch, there's I think there's another picture in here. Go ahead and the next one.
Yep.
And yeah, you can see, just basically see near the middle there, the right hand middle behind that tree anyway, there's a dumpster, and there's a magnet in the dumpster. If you move the dumpster to the left about half an inch, then the lights all come on. That shed at the back is a 9-volt battery in there. And the main lights of the building are 12-volt LEDs, but I use a 9-volt battery because 12 volts are really too bright. 9 volts works perfectly. Then I bring it down to voltage regulator to drop it down to 3.3 volts for the smaller LEDs in the phone booth and the Coke machine and the signage there. Next one, I think that's it. Is it?
Last one.
There's I'll review there. Okay. Yeah. So that's it.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for sharing, Bob. Are there any questions for Bob before we move on? All right. Well, thanks again, Bob. And we will move on to a new entry, Cliff Flatten. Are you up there, Cliff?
Yes, I am.
All righty. Okay, looks like we've got 3 slides for you tonight.
All right. This is one of my scratch built. Did some bushes. I do a lot of scrounging for stuff. Like that is some really, really old foam from, I can't remember which manufacturer did it, but you just pulled it apart and it made these great little bushes. The house is all scratch built by me. The brickwork is actually a paper I get from a guy in Greece. And all my trees that I use are stuff I find out in nature. So it's makes it kind of fun. Let's go to the next one. This one was another scratch built by me. Just did a plaster hill, all manually cut stuff there, except for the little shaker. Then I just, whatever I find that I think can work. I bought paintbrushes, made the weeds, stuff like that. Again, the little bushes down there on the bottom, just bits of foam that I paint and shake around in my greenery and stick them on the spot.
Season at 9.95 ERA.
Are these HO scale?
No, this is all S scale. I do all S scale.
Okay.
Yep. My roof is actually is a tin roof on this house, and I use the silver tape for ductwork, and it works really good. It's super moldable, and I just use the heck out of it.
Huh.
So next scale or
right.
next slide.
Yeah. Actually, before you move on, one question I had.
Yes.
Is I noticed you've got boards going. Well, you've got several different types of boards on this. Did you put a backer on there and then basically glue everything onto that board and then filled up the walls?
Yep. All of that is coffee stir sticks is what I used. That was before my laser cutter, which is what I do everything with now. But those boards I have a doctor. I'm doing a diorama of his wife's shop, and he just fell in love with this because he loved how all the unique detail, and he just loved that it looked like an old beach house.
Yeah, that's what I like about it too, is the way that you've got all those different boards going in all kinds of different directions. That really adds a lot of character to it.
Yeah, being out on the East Coast, I picked up a lot of cues from a lot of the old places there, and just kind of pulled that into this. I'm redoing this, and you and I had kind of discussed making this into a kit, but I'm kind of refining it a little bit for the next way that I'm making it. But it's fun. I love doing scratch rather than a kit because I can let my imagination run wild.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that a beach, because this kind of reminds me of a house that I pass on Route 1 in Delaware. And
Yeah.
the house is falling down,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like you know exactly the one I'm talking about.
There were so many out there. I loved it.
But
it just
yeah, I'll have to see if I can find it. I think it's somewhere around Eagle Crest. But anyway,
okay.
All right, we'll move on to the next one. And this
All
is
right.
the last slide.
Yep. So the stone house, the little bushes there were actually some kind of a weed pod, and I plucked them all and rolled them in glue and stuck them in the in my greenery, and they made amazing little bushes. And then the house with the greenhouse that's there, that tree in the front is one of my weeds that I picked out of the ditch. Just did a ground. I went to dollar store and picked up all kinds of stuff and threw it in my little chopper and just buzzed the heck out of it, and just glued down and sprinkled it on. Another scratch built. That's one of the Sears houses. That's in the green one. I'll just find a house that I like and I scale it up on the screen, use my scale ruler, and away I go with it. The windows are Tichy's on the greenhouse. They're manual scratch built on the stone house. And then if you zoom in, I got these little flower pots, some of the little pine trees. The one pine tree, I don't know if you can see it very well, all the way, excuse me, over on the right. You get these big, thick pipe cleaners at the craft store, and you can make really cool arborvitaes. So, and now I found a new, it's like a concrete patch, and that makes the best driveways. That was what I had used for the driveway on the first slide. So it's what I do. I love it. It's a lot of fun. And I, like I said, I do everything in S scale because I'm doing my shop for my customer in O scale because they wanted it a little bigger.
Yeah, it's quite unique stuff you've got here.
Thanks you
for sharing.
You bet.
How do you protect the stuff you bring in from outside? What do you spray it with?
I usually use hairspray.
Hairspray, got it.
That works just like as can be. It doesn't cause any effects to it, and it gives a little more stiffness. And then I, of course, I bump it, and you might break off a branch, but usually I'm pretty good with it. And yeah, it does real well.
Those shrubs are really something.
Thank you.
And one thing I've heard about bringing bushes and things like that in from the outside, and dirt particularly, is you want to put it in a 250-degree oven for about half an hour while the wife's not around, and that way it kills off the things that are still growing in that material.
Right.
That way it doesn't invade your layout. So
yep. And all of my weeds and stuff I get after a really good hard frost. So it's pretty much killed off everything that would be possibly living in it. And I've never had a bug in the house from it. So yeah, I've been pretty lucky on that part.
Alrighty.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
You mentioned that you import that stonework from Greece. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. I found it through eBay. I don't have his address off the top of my head, but if you go onto eBay and you just type in stone paper, it's all textured. He just does a great job. He doesn't charge shipping, or at least he hasn't to me. And I get like 16, 18 sheets for like $24.
Okay. And it's embossed, is that right?
Yes, it is embossed.
Yeah. Yep. This looks like the same stuff that I get. I get it from Foggy Mountain Models.
Okay. Okay.
And he's right up the street. He's up in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure it's the same stuff.
Okay.
I'm not sure who the actual manufacturer is though.
Okay. All right. And the greenhouse is kind of cool. It's a stucco and it's sandpaper that I use.
Ah,
Stucco. And it's just, it works so good. I love it. Just get a fine grit on the sandpaper and away it goes. You don't get any warping or anything because it's already sealed with the glue. So.
yeah, I've been working on a stucco project. Just got, no pun intended, stuck on how to do the stucco. So, all righty. Well, thanks for sharing, Cliff. Before we go on, are there any further questions? All right. So we will move on. And next up is Daryl Jacobs. Yep, Daryl. All right. I don't think he is, but I'll go ahead and we'll go through these slides. And this, I believe, is the back side of the next building we'll show, but I really like the detail of flower beds and all that. Did a good job with that. And if you notice, look at the, I believe this is the back door to the building. It looks a lot of detail in that also. All right, so this, I believe, is the front of that same building. I think this is actually one of his interaction kits. Because it looks very familiar, but it looks like it go together pretty well. I like how everything sort of interlocks there. Just a nice little summer beach scene. And then we'll move on to the Daryl Jacobs obligatory trailer shots. I guess he's got a thing for trailers. Well, he does, Interaction does sell trailers. So look at all the details and all the flowers and everything that are on this particular trailer. The pink flamingos in the front yard and all that. So and I think there's one more shot of it. Yep, a slightly different angle, but there's a ton of details. I think he did the full detail on the interior on this one too. Just came out fantastic. All right, so moving on, Jeff Jordan, you up, Jeff?
I'm here.
All right. You ready? It looks like you got 3 slides.
Yep.
Okay. First one.
Yep. This is Licklider's Grocery. You've seen me doing bits and pieces of this over the past several months. It's now finished and about to be installed in the local museum. Where they're doing an exhibit on the stores of Fort Valley. And so I built this guy. This is entirely scratch built. And I think in the next slide, you'll see a photograph of the original building, which no longer exists. And there you go, the building and my model. There are no plans. And so for the first time ever, I had to create my own plans from scaling off of these 2 3/4 view photographs of the building. And so it was quite a challenge with no known dimensions other than working with things like the exposure on the siding and the width of the raised seam, metal seam roofing gave me an ability to scale the building. And I think I got pretty close. For the scenery part, and this is kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, I'm at the point on my railroad where I'm needing to build some scenery. And I experimented with the base for this diorama with techniques that I also intend to use on my layout. The base is blue foam, contoured to get the lay of the land, similar to the photograph, and then coated with Sculptamold because I like the texture you get from the Sculptamold. As opposed to plaster, which comes out very slick, and then painted with my favorite shade of latex paint, and then finished with sanded grout to give it even more soil texture on the surface. And then the greenery is various woodland scenics products. One of the neat things about using the Sculptamold is you see the front of the store has got a little sidewalk there. That was done with the same Sculptamold that made the ground cover. And I found that once the Sculptamold dries, you can sand it and file it. And so you get the smooth concrete sidewalk in front of the door and the textured ground. out of the same material. The building is all evergreen styrene and various commercial window castings and door castings, which I had to alter, as you saw in one of my previous presentations on how I altered the doors, and I did similarly with the windows. And the signs. The signs are from word processor. I worked very hard to match the font to get as close to the original font as possible. And I found in my word processing application that there were something like 90 different fonts, and I was able to find a font that matched, except I decided to make the building still in business. Apparently, when the photograph was taken in 1979 and it burnt down shortly thereafter, it was closed and was getting a bit more dilapidated. So in my case, the front door is open, the signs are still legible, and things are a little bit more intact, but it's weathered. And the gas pump is an interaction gas pump, pretty close to the original. Nice little model, and one of the few things that wasn't scratch built in the model.
It came out very nice. What
Thank you.
scale is this?
This is O scale, quarter
Okay.
inch. And as I said, it is going into, it was accepted by the curator of the museum and will be part of their museum display this year on the stores of Fort Valley. And they have a number of photographs of the various buildings, but this one no longer existed. And I dug up these 1979 photographs and fell in love with the design of the building. It's got so many angles and different roof lines that I really wanted to build it. If you go back to the previous photograph that shows the other side, I met the fella whose father built the lean-to addition to this building. This building was added onto and added onto. And he says, oh, my father built the lean-to on that side. And we know it was built before 1945 because he passed away in 1945. It was originally used as storage space for the grocery. And then ultimately, the grocer rented out just that little section, and it became a separate barber shop. And people in the community remember having their haircut in that little lean-to shed. It's really neat because a lot of older folks in the community remember this building. Back on the other side, to the side of the front door, one of the comments I got from folks as I was building it was, make sure you put that little bench in by the front door, because we remember going in the store, buying ice cream and going out and sitting on that bench. So it was essential that the bench be in there. And you can see it you can see it in the photograph, and you can see it in the shadows, just a little low bench. It's just blocks with boards on it. I spent a lot of time with the magnifier trying to figure out what the details were in these pictures. And pretty much added every detail I could find up to the back wall.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like how the different angles, particularly around the doorway area.
Yeah. Apparently, it was built originally and it ended with the area just in front of this lean-to section. And then in 1953, and we found a newspaper article that said, Mr. Licklider has made a significant addition to his grocery to serve his customers. And so apparently that angled addition was the last addition to the building. Why it's built with the wall angled in, I do not know. And nobody could give me a description of the interior other than the fact that you see that front window on the left, one time was the United States Post Office was in that corner of the building.
Well, I would guess that it would be angled that way to be more inviting.
Yeah, it turns the front door, opens it up rather than the rectangle. All built by local carpenters. Indeed, one of the tricks here was to figure out what size the shiplap siding was. And the way I ultimately did that is I wandered around the neighborhood and found other buildings with similar shiplap siding and measured it, because it was all done by local carpenters.
Wow.
Jeff, I've never worked with styrene. How much interior bracing do you have to do? Do you have to do it as if it was a wooden structure?
I braced the interior with the square sticks of styrene, and this building, the walls are braced top and bottom and the corner pieces as well. Even though this siding is among their thicker stock, I think it's 0.04 to prevent it from being at all flexible. I brace the interior extensively.
Thank you.
But I'm really a fan of working with styrene. I like the look of it, and I find it very easy to cut the parts, cut the door openings, window openings, very controllable. And of course, it doesn't split like wood. The roof is a neat product from Woodland Scenics or Evergreen Styrene. It's their raised seam roofing, but what they sell you is a sheet that has been pre-grooved, and then they sell you the material for the raised seams as a separate part, and you glue it in. And of course, you can see the building has got two different sizes of there's 1.5 and 2 foot size panels on the roof. And I was able to replicate both of those, and of course, cut it up to make that rather intricate triangular bits over the front door as well. And then ultimately also added the flashing, which is aluminum foil.
I think we have one more slide also. Yep.
Oh,
There you
there's
go.
just a shot that shows you at the end. There's 2 little details I'm about to go back and add. One is, you can see in one photograph, there is what turns out to be a telephone pole. And so I will add the telephone pole, and you can faintly see in one photograph that there is some sort of sign hanger on this end wall, which I will add. But then we found another photograph long after I finished the model that was taken in 1953 when they did the addition, apparently. And that hanger is empty in 1953. So from 1953 through 1979, there's an empty sign hanger on the end of the building, but I'll put it in to make it as close to the original as I can get, because that was the object here. This is a museum piece, and I'm trying to replicate the photographs as closely as I can, right down to the foliage, the clumps of weeds, and all the other little details.
Neat. All right, any questions for Jeff before we move on? Actually, come to think of it, I had one. What, you mentioned that it's going to be in a display, the stores of Fort Valley.
Yes.
What museum is that going in?
Well, I live in a small community called Fort Valley, Virginia, which is in the northern end of the Shenandoah Valley near Front Royal and Strasburg. And in Fort Valley, there is the Fort Valley Museum, an old building. The Union Church has been made into a museum on Fort Valley and has artifacts from the history of Fort Valley, which stretches all the way back to the late 18th century. And every year they have a rotating display. This year's display is on the stores of Fort Valley. Fort Valley is about 14, 15 miles long, and at times I joke just one farm wide. But there were at least 7 different little general stores and grocery stores in Fort Valley at a time when people didn't travel very far. And this was one of them. And so they're going to be doing the display, have a batch of photographs, and then just an interesting coincidence, because I had started on this before I learned about the museum's display and offered it to them, and it gave me a great impetus to finish it because I had to get it done in time to get it into the display. So it's
Cool.
Fort Valley, Virginia.
Yeah, very neat. A lot of character in this little building.
Yep, that's what caught my eye. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. All right, any more questions before we move on? All right, we'll go on. And Hank Primus, you up?
Yep,
All right.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Looks like you've got 3 slides tonight.
Yep,
All right, so here we go.
yep, that's my obligatory horse farm that I have to have on all of my layouts. my daughter was a big horse fan, raises horses. And she said, you always have to have horses on your land.
Ah, well, there you
So
go.
this is mine with a little bit of grass out there.
Yeah. All righty.
Now, this one is a learning one. If you can see right over here, these are bears.
Yeah, let me
But
see if I can zoom in on them.
no, you can't, because the photographer I had to come take the picture said, why would you put such details 5 feet away from the nearest place that you can stand? So therefore, if you're going to have details like this, make it a lot closer so people can see it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But I just thought of spring and the bears coming out and having a good time.
Yeah. All right, and then I think we have one more. Yep.
Yeah. This one shows some mountain goats coming out in the spring. So I just wanted to show the animals, and these are the bears again in a fuzzy shot, but I wanted to show the animals coming out and enjoying the weather.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Just in time for spring.
Yeah.
So. All righty. There any questions?
That's creative, Hank.
All righty. Well, thanks for sharing, Hank. Appreciate it. Nice work. Nice work to everybody. It was a great showing tonight. And even those that actually it kind of worked out that those that weren't able to be here for one reason or another helped us kind of move through these things a little bit quicker. But we managed to see a lot of neat things. So I think that's about it. And you said what the next MyBuild is? Is it May 24th, Jim?
May 24th.
Okay. All right. And there will not be a theme, but next week I will have a slide for the June theme. And I believe the June theme, if I remember right, is summer. Kind of think more towards water, like beaches and rivers, scenes, and things along those lines. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for participating, whether you were a commenter, you asked questions, or you presented. That's great. That's exactly what this MyBuild is supposed to be about. So anyway, thanks again. I'll turn it back over to you, Jim.
Chris, thank you so very much. And if you can maybe find time tomorrow sometime to send me the information so I can get it in the article, I'd appreciate it, because I'm really tight this month on having to submit that. I apologize for everybody that won't be able to see this because we were not able to either record it on Zoom or on YouTube. We've had several people look at it. No one seems to understand what the problem is or why we're having this problem. The first time we've ever encountered this kind of a situation where we couldn't immediately fix it. But this time it's beyond us and we don't know what's the matter. We'll try desperately to get it fixed before next week. All I can say is to make sure you see the show next week, subscribe to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and join us on Zoom, because the people that joined us on Zoom saw the full show as normal, but that's the only people that'll be able to see this one, because we don't have any way to reproduce the show to show it again on our YouTube channel. So I apologize, but there's just, we just don't know what happened, and saying I'm sorry is all I can do. One other comment I want to make. I've been hearing a lot lately, people talking to me about AI, artificial intelligence. And I don't know whether anybody really has thought about the potential impact that artificial intelligence will have on our hobby, and when that might happen? How long in the future might that take? And what exactly would be the ramifications of model building in our hobby with the implementation of some of the capabilities of artificial intelligence? So I decided to look into it. And what I'm finding out is, I think, amazing. I plan to write an article about it, and I plan to try to have a show about it as soon as I figure out who all I should include on it to try to give the best possible information we can come up with. But it's a fascinating subject to me. The same as I never thought that people could make a trolley by simply doing the computer work of designing the trolley on a CAD program, in putting the CAD program into a 3D printer, and by that day have the body of the trolley completely finished. And in many cases, much better than any modeler can build it from scratch. I never would have thought that possible, but it is. It's happening today. And it's amazing to me. Where artificial intelligence could take us is a whole different world, whole different story. And at least I'd like to discuss it and have some people that are much more knowledgeable about it than I am to try to give some information about it to us all. So with that, I'm sorry again about tonight, but there's just nothing we could do about it because we don't know what the problem was.
There you go.
We don't, the other problem that we have tonight, we don't have a caboose because that didn't work for us either tonight. So apologize for that.
Jim,
So with that, yes.
I'd like to apologize to everyone for what's going on. I've been trying all during the show to get it straightened around, but I do notice that it has been recording. So this show may go on yet.
Where is it?
If you look on it, you'll see recording.
It is recording
Yeah,
now?
Tom Farrell's been recording it.
But there's also been recording to, but I apologize, man. I've never had this problem before. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
But I want to say that it was a great show tonight, and it's too bad it didn't get on YouTube.
Well, you know, these things happen.
You might be able to upload it when we're all done. A couple of us have recorded it.
Good.
Well, if you can, that would be great. And if you'll just let me know when you're going to upload it, then I'll put something out on my Facebook pages and so forth, and we'll try to make people aware of it. Because I do think that there was an awful lot of good information, as I think there always is on our shows. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people won't be able to see it, that are just accustomed to being able to see it at their leisure later on and not have to worry about being on it with Zoom. But for you all that saw it on Zoom, thank you so much for being here this evening. And we'll try to get it straightened out for everybody else before next week. Until then, happy modeling and thanks again for everything.